Hello, it's Denise, Mentor Grade Mama, and today I want to do a channel update, uh, June overview type of video. I've been wanting to do an overview video for a while now, but I've been on a break. I actually took a long vacation. I went and visited family with my kids. We try to go once a year for like a really long trip, and we were gone for like a month, which was great. And at the same time, I decided to take a social media break because I just, I get, I'm like an old soul and technology doesn't always click with me. And I just feel like I'm struggling. Like, I don't know how people keep up with it all, like what's going on. If people are on like all these different like platforms, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, how? And so, yeah, I just was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take a little break, and I did, and I'm back, and I'm super excited to be back, and I'm also glad I had a break. so, so there you go. So some of these books I read a while back, and I just haven't had the time to put them in a video. So the first one that I want to talk about is Shaman Stone Soup by Elizabeth Herrera. It's a really interesting short book. It's about 130 pages, so very short, and each chapter is like its own little story from her life. It's like a biographical story. Let's see, on the back it says, it takes you on the journey of an atheist who discovers Native American spirituality and becomes a healer for friends, family, and clients. The author shares her personal stories that demonstrate how spirit guides, angels, and enlightened beings can answer calls for help through miracles. So that's basically it. Like each chapter is a story from her life, and then at the end of each chapter, and they're usually very, very short, just a few pages. At the end of each chapter is a message from the spirit. So, for example, this one just happens to say, what ascends upon us is not the problem, but the symptom. An illness stems from the mind, and all thoughts of illness can be removed from the mind. So that's like a little, the lesson, basically what was illustrated in the chapter. So it was a really quick read. It was really interesting. I always like to hear about other people's experiences. So I thought that one was pretty fun and short and easy to read. So that was great. So the next book that I read was Adventures with the Ancient Crystal Skulls by, I want to say Yoki Van Dieten, and Jill Gurr. This was an very interesting book. Basically, it's another kind of biographical story. It's the story of Yoki. I hope I'm saying that right. It's her life story. Most of it is. And she's had a very interesting life. She raced cars. Let's see what it says on the back. It's an inspirational memoir by Yoki Van Dieten. She helped her father hide from the Nazis and was one of the first female Ferrari race car drivers in Europe. She became an international celebrity after surviving a horrific accident. Yogi defied the doctor's predictions of death or disability when she realized that her own belief system controlled her body. So it really is very interesting. And the other thing to keep in mind, oh, that's really cool because I've actually been to at least one of the places in her book. So that's a whole nother story. But a lot of the story is her life story, and it doesn't start talking about the crystal skulls until somewhere, I want to say almost mid book. So I bought it as a crystal skull book, and I was reading it, and it was very interesting, but I kind of wondered where the crystal skulls were going to come in, and they came in about chapter 10 or so, I want to say. And then, it was from there, like a lot about crystal skulls. So it is, but I mean, she had a lot of life story before the crystal skulls came in. So that was something that I realized once I got the book. But it was still really interesting. It was really just really intriguing, her life story. And then there's a part about her crystal skulls. I mean, she had people like finding crystal skulls and bringing them to her. It was crazy. And then the co-author, Jill Gurr, has a chapter at the end about her experiences. There's also a little bit about people's comments that they have written in or told her after they have interacted with her crystal skull tribe. So kind of fun. As far as crystal skull books go, you know, pretty fun book and an interesting life story. So I loved it. And this one, 2 Weeks, A True Haunting, is not my favorite, unfortunately, by Rebecca Patrick Howard. It wasn't written poorly. It wasn't, I don't know. I can't, it's hard for me to put my finger on what I particularly didn't care for in this book, but it just seemed very, it's a story of a haunting, yes, but it's also very much a story of demonic possession. So it's very like good versus evil, you know, it's not so much like, and I think for me, what I find intriguing about haunting stories is the haunting and, you know, like the presence of somebody that has passed over. And so I think that there might have been, you know, some like ghosts. I'm trying to remember, it was a while back, but a lot of it was like demonic possession. So like very much demons and not so much like ghosts of people that have passed on. So I think that was why it just at the end, it wasn't like my cup of tea. It wasn't a horrible book by any means, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for in a true haunting book. I'm still working on that. I think I have another one that I'm hopefully going to read soon. But this was, I think, my favorite book that I read over the last couple months. And this is The Book of Help, A Memoir and Remedies by Megan Griswold. And I don't know if you've heard of this before. I just kind of happened across it on Amazon. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, you know, if it's going to be good. And so I ended up just buying it. I think it had a lot of good reviews. And so it's just really, really interesting. It's the story of basically like a seeker. Like I feel like I am like always looking for something, seeking some remedy or some program or something to help. And it's the story of her life kind of through that, like how she's tried all these different programs. Let's see what it says on the flap. It traces one woman's lifelong quest for love, connection, and peace of mind. A heartbreakingly vulnerable and tragically funny memoir and remedies, Megan Griswold's narrative spans 4 decades and 6 continents, from the glaciers of Patagonia and the psychotropics of Brazil to academia, the Ivy League, and the study of Eastern medicine. It says at 7, she asked Santa for her first mantra, and by 12, she was taking weekend workshops on personal growth. But excuse me, later, when her newly wedded husband calls in the middle of the night to say he's landed in jail, Megan must accept that her many certificates, degrees, and licenses have not been the finish line she'd once imagined them to be, but instead the preliminary training for what will prove to be the wildest, most growth-insisting journey of her life. So I think that was what kind of held me back. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a book that, you know, was like, oh, studying personal growth stuff is not worth it, and it's not, you know, it's a waste of time. It was hard to tell by the description, but it's just somebody that's tried all these different, and she even lists them here in the front, like mental work, metaphysical malpractice, Christian Science, transcendental meditation, transactional analysis, color reading, past life family tree, EST training, and just like all these different things that she's tried. And I was like, it's so easy for me to see like that I've tried like so many different things too. And it's a really interesting book. And I think there's like one tarot section in there. She consults a tarot reader, and it's short, but is is funny. So I really, really liked it. It's just, I guess I just like stories about people's lives. That's just seems to be the stuff that I like to read. And it was a really quick read. It looks thick, but it basically, let's see. See if I can find the end. So it's 357 pages, and I really feel like it was a really quick read though, because it was just so, it just pulled me right in, and it was a fun read. All right, so not to make this too long, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over some decks. I managed to only get two technically, because I just traded somebody. So 2 new decks over the last couple months, which is really amazing for me. Well, that I went out and purchased. Now I did get in my my last unicorn Kickstarter, and I got the new edition of Naked Heart Tarot, which was amazing. So Raven's Wand Oracle is the one that I actually went out and bought, and it's so interesting looking. I had never heard of Raven's Wand, the novel, and I just saw this on the shelf, and I thought, yeah, that looks great. And so here's a couple of the cards. I used this with my crystal skulls for the first month that I had it. I'm still using it for that, like the ones that I have a couple down here. I have this whole weird system of upstairs and downstairs, but the downstairs crystal skulls, this is the oracle cards that I usually use to get messages from them. And so it's just a really, really pretty one. And I think it's US Games. I'm not going to do a whole review or anything, but like, I love it. And I love the messages. And as far as I can tell, the author actually also did the artwork, which is super impressive. So I had to go out once I found that and get Raven's Wand, book 1. I think it's a trilogy, and I haven't been able to find the other books here, because I believe the only place I've been able to find them is the author's website, which is in the UK. So if this turns out to be an awesome book, I might have to order the other ones. I believe I can also get the ebooks too. So I'm going to look into that. So the other decks I've been using a lot, the Crystal Wisdom Healing Oracle by Judy Hall. I have really been moving into using crystals and working with crystals even more than I had before, which was still a lot. So I've been doing a lot of crystal work, and I really, really like the pictures on these cards. They are, I mean, it's just the stone or the crystal just right there. Ooh, yes, this one keeps coming up for me. I know, it has a message for me. It says, detox. So I really like the artwork on these. I'm not a super huge fan of the backs because they're not even reversible. Not that I think you read these with reverse meanings, but I mean, it's just this weird gradient thing. Anyway, I do like the photographs, and I like the book. Okay. It's just a little message from the stone. I'd like it if it had a little more information on the actual stone itself, but that's easy enough to go look up in a different place, either online or in a different book. So I've been using that like basically every day. And then I've been using for a couple of months now the Akashic Tarot by Sharon Ann Klinger and Sandra and Taylor. And I have just, I think this might have been in my last like overview video that I did. I don't know, like I've just, yes. It's just a really interesting deck. It's not like a real tarot deck by any means. It's a very much like a structured oracle deck, but it just keeps like sometimes I'm like I'm gonna put this away and use a different deck, and then no, it just calls me back in. So I've been using this one a lot, even though I mean the artwork on some of them, like this one, it's well. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna drop them all over. Like this one specifically, like I don't particularly care for the artwork. It's not, I don't know, it's like a photograph of a person, and that's not always my favorite kind of artwork, but I do like the messages in the guidebook, and it has been pretty much on point for me. So I just keep using it. So that one. And the other one I just got was the Saints and Mystics reading cards. And this one, I happened to see a review on, and I thought, oh, that might be interesting. I hadn't really thought of it before. And then I knew someone that wanted to trade. So I traded. And a couple of things, for me, I don't know if this will be the same for everyone, but the Saints and the Mystics have different, backings. So it's like using two different oracle decks in the same, like together, which is, I prefer the backs to all be the same. It's just personal preference. The other thing I noticed, and I don't know if this only bothers me or if this bothers other people, is that like all of these people, most especially the women, are all young and just gorgeous. And while that is nothing to complain about, I guess you could say, like, okay, so here's an older gentleman. I've gone through this deck twice, and I'm pretty sure there's no older women in the deck. So there are a couple older men represented, but as far as women go, I don't know if this is because I'm getting older, like my birthday is coming up, and I'm not gonna say how old I'm gonna be, but it just, maybe that's been on my mind, but I just found myself lately like, I mean, I'm still gonna work with this deck. I feel like the messages in the book are really nice, but like, I mean, come on, what is she, like, am I just getting so old that I feel like all these people are super young? Is it just because the author or the artist maybe is young, and so they're picking like their peers, like pictures of their peers? But when I think of, see, I don't even know who that is. Like Florence Scovel Shinn. So I'm a fan of hers. I have her books. I'm sure, it's not like everybody was old all the time, but I don't know. I don't know what to think. Like, so here's Carl Jung. And then here's Helena Blavatsky. And she's young. Of course, Isaac Newton just hanging out there, being super gorgeous. Plato. And so here's Socrates, so also not like the youngest guy. Let me find some. Yeah, and then we have Aristotle. So it's hard to tell for me. She might, I don't know what age she is. Guys. There's Dan Fortune. And, oh, Edgar Casey. So anyway, for me, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm just like, okay. And Joan of Arc was definitely a younger person. So that, for me, I can see that. But I don't know. Were all these people just really that young? I mean, at one point they were, right? But when they became famous, like even Santa Muerte, very, looking very nice in her get up there. So I don't know. Just a weird personal preference I have. Like I want to see, and these are depictions of actual people. So, and I don't know that much about them. So it's hard for me to say if those are even, you know, close to accurate representations because I don't really know. But I feel like why are there's some younger men obviously, and then there's some men that are like depicted as in their, you know, as being older, like Confucius, you know, and they're all the women seem to be depicted as in their late teens and early 20s. So, gosh, I don't know why that bothers me, but it kind of does. And the book that I'm reading right now is The Pagan Christ by Tom Harper, and it is really, really good. I have just started it, so it's hard for me to say like I'm only about 35 pages in, but it's basically saying it's saying that Christianity got a lot of its myths and its legends from pagan myths and legends that had already existed for thousands of years, and a lot of cultures retold these same myths using their own characters. You know, the myths, even some of the names, I mean, are just very similar, but it's just like the myths were always there. And then Christianity took the stories and the myths and they claimed them as their, not only did they claim them as their own, but they also eventually decided that it was factual. It wasn't a myth, it was a fact. And so his whole thing in this book, from what I've read so far, is that by claiming that it wasn't a myth, that the stories were indeed factual, it actually set people up down a long path of like, you know, having all these problems because it was saying, you know, all this great stuff instead of like having it be a mythological story where you can derive some benefit from it and apply it to your own life. It's very much like, you know, just worship this one person because this one person was really great. So, and I'm only a little ways in, but it just seems like really, really interesting, and I'm really excited to keep reading more. Of course, I have limited reading time, and that's a whole nother thing. I'm trying to be really realistic about what I can get done. I had whole bunches of books and things I want to do and all this other stuff, and I'm trying to really say, you know, no, I might want to read 10 books this month, but that's not really going to happen. So what realistically can I expect to read? Because I was just absolutely frustrating myself by trying to do too much. So another thing, and I'm just going to briefly touch on this because it's already, I can't, like I just have so much stuff I want to say and I can't stop talking. My crystal skull collection has, and my tribe has kind of undergone like a really big change over this last couple months. I was in a really good place, I want to say like up through May, and I felt like I had like the crystal skulls that I was working with, and I was really happy with the amount that I had, and I didn't feel like I needed any, and all of a sudden I just felt like I was, you know, being called to find more. I mean, it went from being I'm very happy not getting any more right now to, oh my gosh, I got to go find some. And, you know, looking and I'm trying to find the ones that were calling to me. So I just want to introduce two of of the kind of quantity that just kind of found their way into my tribe here, very happily, you know. But this is Mercy. That's what I call her. Missing a tooth and a bottom jaw, but her name is Mercy. And okay, and then we have Mary. And just absolutely gorgeous. And so they've kind of joined my tribe, and I have several others, and I just don't have the time to really go into it here, but that might be a fun video. Just as far as the updates go, I kind of have been working much more with crystals and still divination, but a lot more with crystals. And so I'm going to still be doing a lot of divination on this channel, but also including a lot of crystal videos because that's just where my life is going right now. And I feel like that is just something I'm going to go with the flow with because it has just been a very strong calling for me over the past few months, especially since I've taken some time to kind of sit back and reflect on things and had a little bit more mental space where I could reflect and choose like what direction that was calling me. And so I'm going to be incorporating a lot more of that here because that's just what's going on with my life. I hope to be making a lot more videos of like topical content and not just a lot of like unboxings and that kind of thing. So hopefully I'll be able to do that a little bit more starting this summer. And gosh, 25 minutes already. So if you are still here, thank you so much. And I just wanted to say, last thing, I'm just really grateful for this space on YouTube to be able to connect with other people that share the same interests and beliefs. It can be, some people are super lucky and they have uh, groups and things in their area. And I am lucky because I have more in where I live now than I did previously. But still, it's nice to have this option to be able to see other people talk about things that some people around might really think that I was crazy if I started talking to them about crystal skulls and tarot. So it's nice to be able to kind of just even put that out here. And I mean, maybe some people think I'm crazy, but some people don't. So that's kind of it's really big plus. And so thank you very much for being a part of this channel. And I appreciate it. And I hope to talk with you again later. Hey, bye.